Now, the objection is that in the flow of time, the new needs of the new productive generation are already represented in the prior or older generation, and in the flow of time they will receive themselves. This mechanism has not been explained, and I will explain it in a new way. I will maintain that the working life generation of 40 years, 50 years in some cases, 60 in others, in the prior generation has seen such a growth, such an increase upwards of the rate of real taxes, and these are introduced by socialistic governments, so that the people in America ought to take great note with the failures of manufacturing and industry in America, General Motors and the bailouts and the banks and so on and so forth. This call to the government for bailouts and for redistribution of wealth could be a fatal error, utterly destroying and bankrupting a generation. And as it becomes underway, the rest of the world may look with horror on America and see that they must cease to support America by taking up the treasury bonds and so on and so forth, and continuing, as it were, to bankroll America, that it can only go nowhere or down or into collapse, which is the situation here. People are thinking here, well, we're green, we're agricultural, surely nothing can happen to us. But it is happening to us. Tax receipts are down. Employers are being forced to employ underrated labour. You know, these are classic signs of an economy in trouble. You know, a high economy now seeking cheaper methods, and the government desperate for revenue. You know, the other day I saw an incident where it would have been great to have had a policeman there, and 2 police cars did travel by, but they are traffic police, not civil police. So here the government is failing to protect the citizens and chasing revenue from, you know, revenue generating citizens, you know, and virtually allowing crime to go unchecked all around us. So they're failing to do the job. They're failing to do the primary and ultimate excuse for democracy, that you will have order and law and justice. Yeah, the taxes themselves are unjust. The government itself is unjust. It votes for things the people do not want, and so on and so forth. They in no way represent us. But in economic terms, the objection is to a 20% final and total real tax rate as being a limiting point, is that, hold on, we're already supporting older people in need from prior generations. Surely we can continue to do that ad infinitum, forever. You know, it is viable, it is sustainable. No, it is not. No, it is not. This prior generation saw such an accelerated increase in taxes that it is this generation, this current generation, as it launches off into its 40-year period of paying taxes, it's the young people. And my appeal is to the young people to see this, to see that it will not be delivered to them what they have been paying for others. And therefore the taxes they are paying are largely pointless. The effort they're putting in is almost guaranteed to be pointless. They will get no traction in this economy. They will lose. They will lose big. The gains will be taken from them. Any savings, any taxes they pay will be lost in terms of delivering any security or benefit or good of any kind to them. So why would they continue to do this? The rate of acceleration of the taxes has been so great that you could say it's this current generation, this one we're now entering into, and has been underway just a little while, not the 40 years, but just a little while. This is the first and the last, the unrepeatable and the unsustainable high tax generation. It's unsustainable. You can't do 50% taxes going on to 60% taxes, going on to 70% taxes. You know, you'll then get 40% of people paying for 60%, and then 30% of people paying for 70%, and 80% of 20% of the people paying for 80% of the people. This is not right. This is not fair. It's not sustainable. It's not viable. It's reached a break point, and it's a severe break point, because in actual fact the break point was back there with 20%. It is not sustainable. Governments have taken this money for gravy trains, for fancy emoluments and rewards to themselves. The government has recently, this Christmas, rewarded itself with an increase, a salary increase, when the management of the country has been incompetent, and they should take a pay cut, not a pay increase. You know, morally, ethically, economically, in terms of appropriate rewards and benefits, they should take a cut, not an increase. But they've given themselves an increase. This is insane. It's obscene. It's silly. It's criminal. Actually, it's criminal. And I think they will be found to have to wind this back on themselves, and the courts of the future will find this kind of administrative incompetence to be criminal, and will charge them for it. So I don't think ultimately they will get away with it. They will be prosecuted for it. The picture that I have in my mind, that life is for life, life is for living, life is not here to pay taxes, and that freedom is the amount of money left to you that remains to you after you've paid your taxes. So obviously if 75% of the money is left to you, then you can organise and arrange your own health thing, and you can afford the more expensive food that healthy food is. Healthy food is actually more expensive than cheap food. Cheap food is gluggy. It tends to be carbohydrate and inexpensive, but it's bad for you. It's not good. Good food, it costs money, but if there are more people buying good food, then the cost will come down. So it'll be a far healthier society. At the moment, we pay people to be sick because there's no cost to them if they are healthy or unhealthy. And in actual fact, in terms of benefits, for instance, in terms of social welfare, and America should consider this kind of thing, because what we do is your future, is we actually pay a drunk person, a person who's a chronic drunkard, we actually pay such a person more money than a person who's just ordinarily sick. or certainly a lot more than somebody who is unemployed. Now, I think we should pay somebody who's unemployed almost as much as what they got to keep their spirits up immediately after they've become unemployed, as an encouragement, to keep their high tone up and go back to work, and then drop it back every 6 months, 18 months, 2 years, and so on until it's a lower level. But it should always be higher than a sick person who will never be productive or never be useful again to society. So we're paying quite in reverse. The thinking around the whole thing is insane. I mean, who pays for this after all? It's the working people, the taxpayer, and then when they stop being a taxpayer, a working person for a temporary reason, in between jobs or something, we punish them more severely than a murderer or a sick person or a drunk or a diabetic person who's spent most of their life eating cream buns, which you see on the street a lot. Gangrene, pale, big fat pale legs, with very poor circulation, and scoffing yet another cream bun. Now, I don't think we should pay a penny for that kind of behaviour. And the only way to force good health on people, if they're not going to volunteer to behave in a healthy way, is to tax sugary food, or does seem strange since my topic is taxes, or to encourage a situation where people can eat healthy food with their own money and look after their own health, because we're not going to anymore. The collectivity, the communistic, the commune is not going to look after your health. You look after your health. I mean, the terminology is appropriate. You look after your health. You are the beneficiaries of good health. Don't make someone else responsible for my health. If I'm unhealthy, I'm the one to whom the tragedy is occurring. I'm the one who best understands why it's tragic. I don't have to seek an excuse. I don't really need to be paid by other people. If it's my own fault, I know it's my own fault, and so on and so forth. And let's keep all the moral complexities at home where they belong. Let's not shove them off in a vague way, because as you do so, what you create is an enormous pool of money which other people then come and grab hold of and build their little empires on, whether it's pharmaceutical companies or health, hospital empires, management empires, policy making empires. They'll build their little organisation on top of this pool of money, you see. And in the end, it doesn't deliver good health to people at all. It's a complete and utter lie, and it's totally dishonest. It sounds so grand, it sounds so kind, it sounds so compassionate, but in actual fact, it's completely and utterly pernicious and extremely vicious in its effects. So, tax money is misspent, and it is destroying the economy. It's the greatest crime of the century. The picture is of a governor. You know what a governor is, of spinning balls that when the engine speeds up, the balls spin out further and closes a valve so the engine slows down. And when it slows down too much, the balls shrink in, it opens up the valve, and more fuel comes through and the engine speeds up. So it governs both ways. That's the picture. But what you've got now is the picture of an engine this size, but the balls and the governor itself is heavy and weighty, and is of a similar size as the engine that it's supposedly governing. The point of the engine is to move the vehicle forward. But now we've got an engine. The point of the engine is to keep the governing balls, the heavy balls, really heavy, keep them rotating. And so you have a kind of overweight, heavily overweight helicopter that doesn't fly. It just, barely gets the rotors around and stays on the ground. What on earth is the point of such an engine, of such a helicopter that doesn't fly, and an engine that doesn't do anything but keep the balls, which are just supposedly a detail of the motor? So the question, as well as, what is life about? Life is for living. Life is not to pay taxes in order to cover, protect, advance and educate for life. You can't live a life for life. You've got to live life. That's the whole point, with all its attendant risks, adventures, and achievements that are possible, and so on. Tragedy, etc. It's part of life. We cannot avoid these things. It's the same with this picture of the motor, the engine, of the governor. And the picture of the governor is really a picture of who runs things. The idea that has grown in people's minds is that somehow the government runs things. I think we must remove from the picture the idea that the government runs anything or should run anything. Well, that's probably the ultimate privatisation argument. But the government runs anything at all, even education, even health. Why should they run that? Why should the government take money from a dentist and set up a competing dental service to the dentist? Why should the government take money from landlords and set up a competing landlord property service? That's unfair. It's grossly unfair. It's obscene. It's insane as well. And as I'm suggesting by this 20% tax and the cannibalisation, the way that taxes destroy the economy, it is definitely crazy. And who runs the country? Well, my answer is we do, and they, our representatives, they represent us. So they should be truck drivers and shop assistants and nurses and doctors and teachers and private persons and housewives and etc. in government. Maybe the jury system is the best way to run a democracy. I haven't given up on democracy as such. I just think that what we see with party block voting and how people pull their strings of these parties by paying off the few individuals they entail. We know who those individuals are. But if the entire electorate was were candidates like a jury, how could any kind of force pay off all these people? They can't get to them before they're elected, because you just don't know who's going to be elected. By the drawing of straws, I think we would do far better. At the moment, we're not being run by free and open historical forces, open historical and economic forces. We're run by groups of people who already have money, and they pay off politicians to run us. excuse me, but they do not represent us. They represent these